Yes.
What is the Islamic movement, the student movement in America doing? Why they
It varies a bit from school to school. There are some schools that are very active. There are some schools that are not very active. And those schools that are active usually found some kind of a leader who for some reason was able to provide a direction. As an example, there's a brother from Saudi Arabia by the name of Hassan. He was majoring in mathematics and computers at San Francisco State College. And he's always come up in a very religious family. People might consider him to be a bit fanatic. He comes to this big cosmopolitan city, San Francisco, California, and he is wearing his thobe. Well, on San Francisco State's campus, you do not wear thobes. You can wear Levi's, you can wear Brooks Brothers suits, but you do not wear thobes. People will make fun of you if you wear thobes. Brother Hassan wore his thobe, not even thinking about what other people were saying. And they were in the corners kind of laughing, saying, the farmer, even some of the Arab students and the Muslim students were saying, why is he doing that? Doesn't he realize this is embarrassing to us? Hassan continued, and not only did he wear a thobe, let me tell you what he frequently ate in the cafeteria. Dates. Dates. This is what he had. Sitting in the cafeteria, all the students eating traditional American food, and Brother Hassan is eating dates. People just kind of look, they said, this is a weird brother. The grades came out in the first semester, and this so-called weird brother Hassan had all A's. The word went everywhere. All the Muslim students said, Hassan has all A's. And I've been having difficulty in math. I don't want to flunk out of this school and go home because my parents will kill me. So they went to Hassan and said, Brother Hassan, how you doing? Salaam alaikum. How's school? You look like you like math. I'm having a few problems. Could we get together sometime? And he said, yes, brother. He was very serious. He said, I'd be glad to share with you whatever I know. However, I have a problem. I'm on this campus. I don't know a lot of people. And on Juma, I'm accustomed to going to a mosque to pray. And there is no mosque on this campus. It's a Catholic school, in fact. And the students do not seem to be aware of where the closest mosque is. And what I'd like to do is to go to the university and get a room set aside that on Juma we can have prayer. And if you will assist me, I will tutor you free. Well, the end of the story is that if you go to San Francisco State today, there are 300 students every Juma having prayer. If you talk to the students, you will find that on the average, students who are getting C and C minus grades, which is average grades, are now getting B and A grades. Because Hassan made legitimate academic achievement. People who were just outright playboys became A students. And of course, this gave them more money because their parents just said, look, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. But it gave a respect on that campus. So that when a student came there, a Muslim student, your orientation on that campus is if you don't read and you don't achieve on this campus, you have embarrassed us. So it went from the extreme of making fun to respecting because one man started a program based on achievement. Achievement. He's saying we're at a university. That's where all the books are. We may never have a chance to come back again. Why blow this opportunity to acquire knowledge? All right, there are other schools where, unfortunately, leadership of the type that Hassan provided didn't materialize. So they may have 2 or 3 students. They start out enthusiastically, you know, let's have a discussion. Let's have a Muslim student association. So then you get the first time half the students come out. By the end of the semester, 2/3 of the students don't come out. You ask them why, they say nothing happens. And you just go there and talk or argue and leave, so what's the point of being there? Leadership is required. You have to ask yourself, what would make a person want to come to an Islamic student meeting? What is going to go on that's going to be beneficial? What do you have to offer? You can't just say we're offering Islam. You can get that anywhere. What do you have to offer? On a college campus, the best thing you have to offer is the highest grades in the school. You're telling the students, look, brothers, we're on this campus and we want our names at the top as being the highest achieving students. And the person on there, the only thing he wants to know is, how much time is it going to take and can I do it? And you have to overcome his doubt, the feeling of inferiority, the feeling that he can't achieve. And you overcome that by demonstrating success. You're saying, if you're having trouble and I'm having trouble, let's find a tutor. Let's discuss how to perform better in this course. But once you establish the tone, people will come to your meeting because selfishly, they're getting something out of it that they can quantify. Pure selfish. In addition, there may be intrinsic values. If, however, there are no programs, what will hold the students? The problems today are going to be related to television. You have to compete with the television. Television has more to offer from an emotional point of view. They have entertainment, they have soapbox operas, they have comedies. A person is reading and they are progressing mentally and their mind is alert and alive and they have confidence in themselves. Confidence in their reading, spiritual growth will be automatic. We, in 1962, had an organization that started by a couple, 3, I guess, very naive college students who just thought that if we made an announcement that we all needed to get together, that we would. And we did. The first meeting we, I guess, had maybe about 12 or 13 people. Then we started reading books. And fortunately for us, the leaders of the group would not let us digress. It didn't end up being a blame session where we just sat around and said, I don't like him, and I don't like him, and I don't like the government, and I don't like that. You can't sustain it. You're not learning anything. You're responding to feelings. Before we don't like or do like, let's get some information. Let's find out what actually happened. And one of the books that we read was They Came Before Columbus. I did not believe when the gentleman recommended the book for us to read. I thought he was making it up, and I thought that he was lying. He said the book will tell us how West African Mandingos sailed from the west coast of Africa over to Mexico hundreds of years before Columbus. They Came Before Columbus is the name of the book. Van Sterneman is the author. They got the book, we brought it in the group, we started reading it, and the first thing I did is look at the pictures, because that was the easiest. And when I saw the statues in Mexico, I did not have to ask any other questions. I went back and read the book. That became the basis of our interest. People start telling their friends, brother, do you know this? They were in demand. Do you know what happened in West Africa? I didn't even know how to spell Mandingo. But I was excited about what had been done, which gave us then the opportunity to read Mr. Blyden's book, incredible book, Edward Blyden, called Christianity, Islam, and the Negro Race. Again, on West Africa, comparing Christian villages with Muslim villages and given the reason why the Muslim villages were so far ahead. Edward Blyden. And then we start reading books. E. Franklin Frazier, W. E. Du Bois. I read Marcus Garvey. I was amazed. This gentleman was an African American, actually born in Jamaica. And when the African American population in the United States in 1917 and 1920 was roughly 9 million, he had 3 million members. No one has had that kind of success since. He raised $10 million in 3 years, no television, no celebrity endorsements. So I was just curious, how could a man go into the black community and come out with $10 million in 3 years? What did he do? In reading the book, I came across a name. Musa Muhammad Ali was the gentleman in England who gave Marcus Garvey his first job and directed Marcus Garvey to the bookstore or to the library. He said, Garvey, I'm going to give you enough just to live, and the library will give you enough to live forever. And when I saw the influence of Marcus Garvey coming from a Muslim, I became even more excited. But I would have never known that. As a result, in the Bay Area, the group got larger and larger. We read operas. When we first decided to study French, there was some objection. What are we studying French for? That's the white man's language. What do we want to be like the white people? We just study our own language. That's all we have to do. What are we studying French for? That's the white man's language. What do we want to be like the white people? We just study our own language. That's all we have to do. But after thought, we just listed the objectives. What is the purpose of reading? What is the value of French? Where can it be used? How can it help? And then we weighed all the disadvantages. There was one. Some people don't like it. We said, well, can't you say more than that? So when you added it up, logic took over. We read French at night. This was not during school. In the evening, we got a brother from Mali. He came in and he taught us French. Then we read the Bible. If we hadn't read the Bible, I would be at a tremendous disadvantage. Reading the Bible thoroughly and critically. I mean, these brothers wanted to know everything. But now I have a good framework in the Bible. So when I give speeches, I don't mind talking about the Bible because we studied it thoroughly. Then we studied the Quran. Some said if you study the Bible before you study the Quran, that's haram. I said, fine, but just show me in the Quran where it says that. I'm willing to do whatever the Quran said, but let the Quran show me. I said, well, we go back to the blackboard, list all of the support as why we shouldn't do it this way, and all the reasons why we shouldn't do it this way, and then we weigh them, and we proceed on the basis of logic. Now, if you go to the Bay Area, you will find an amazing thing. You'll find a large number of African-American doctors, African-American scientists, African-American engineers, who came out of that group. The leading politician, African-American in the state of California, is out of that group. The leading African-American congressman in the United States Congress is out of that group. All of these brothers could have easily been in penitentiary today because these were block boys. Poor families, no hope, no chance, but because they developed the belief in themselves predicated upon knowledge, they became a producing human being. I stress to you, don't miss the opportunity to develop a reading group and read all that you can. It may be slow at first. Do it anyway. Meet once a week, discuss the book, read the book first. Just don't come discussing. Read the book, analyze the book, ask the questions. Why are we reading it? What is this book all about? What can it do for me? What am I going to do after I'm finished reading it? What are all the disadvantages? And once you decide, don't turn back. The next one will be just a little easier, and the next one will be just a little easier, and after a while it will be a pattern that you won't feel comfortable going to sleep ignorant. Your brain will cry out for brain food just as strongly as your body cries out for body food. It means that you can plan better. Now, some of those same brothers that went to engineering school, they are now working on a system to provide communication satellites for the entire continent of Africa. Both a mapping satellite and a communication satellite. The plan is to have 3 satellites launched in orbits of about 200 to 300 miles. And then a mapping satellite launched in about a 70,000 foot range. The mapping satellite gives you the capability of sitting in this room and from the satellite obtaining data, digitizing that data, doing a scan of the data, sitting right here in this room, and I could tell you where the gold, the silver, the uranium is located in this country. This is advanced technology. So instead of going the old way, prospecting and costing millions and millions, the new technology, utilizing infrared and algorithms to correlate the probability of geological profiles and signatures, gives you a chance to move the community from a point of depression to a point of advancement. We got millions of brothers out there in the rural areas, almost starving to death. And we are Muslims are saying, Assalamu alaikum, we really are committed. Brother Adam, tell the people we're with them. And after he tells them that, what's he going to say? What's he going to say next? We are students. We should be analyzing the circumstances of their existence. We should be highlighting the technology that will improve their life. That's our job. That comes through reading. I was reading in the newspaper, Wall Street Journal, the story about a little old funny plant that grows wild in Ethiopia, just grows all over the place. And one American government employee found that plant and looked at the berry. And based upon the local people, he was convinced that that berry, the juice of the berry, would cure cancer. So he said, here I am in the desolate areas of Africa, but this is my day. I can now retire. I'll be a multimillionaire. I have struck it rich. Just find out how to get that juice and cure all the cancer. He was happy. They did some studies and it didn't seem to have any effect on cancer. But by accident, they found out that the juice of this berry, if you put it in toxic substances, removes the toxicity. Right now, they have up here in part of the Zulu village, mercury waste that was brought from the United States that is 1,000,000 times stronger than the allowable exposure amount in the United States. The United States said, don't bury that stuff here. Get that out of here. That's dangerous. It will kill you. They sold it, and it ended up here in South Africa. It's here now. And it's polluting the water. And people will die. And when they die, they say, well, I don't know what happened. I guess there must be some epidemic. There's some outbreak. Well, it's this kind of juice from the berry that can solve the problem. But how do you know if you don't read? When I read the article, the first thing I did is the cheapest, because I don't like spending a lot of money. The Quran said don't waste assets. Allah is not happy when you waste money. So I said, well, the cheapest thing to do is either telephone or write a letter. Telephone, he may not be there, call me back, and I probably will not be there because I live on airplanes. So I'll write the letter. If he writes back, I can call my office and they'll tell me what he said. He was very nice, and this is something interesting, and it's my life, and this and this and this. I said, well, send me some literature. He sent me some literature, and lo and behold, a brother from Africa was the one who was in charge of the investigation. I jumped on the plane and flew to Washington, D.C. Said, brother, assalamu alaikum. He said, wa alaikum salam. I said, what are you doing in this laboratory anyway? They tell me you're a chemist. They tell me that you're on the verge of creating chemical compounds that can revolutionize the world. Is that true? He said, inshallah, I think we're very close to doing something very interesting. And we persuaded the government of Zimbabwe to put in a pilot plant. And that's where it is now, in Zimbabwe. When I leave South Africa, I'm going to Zimbabwe. And the people that put the project up took the seed after it was mature, and they took it to Costa Rica. They lied to the government in Zimbabwe. They said, all we want to do is with this seed is to decompose the shell and get the oil to further our investigation. They took the seed to Costa Rica because they said, we do not want to be dependent on Africans. They're too unstable. One day we will get product, the next day we won't. We're in business, we can't depend on them. So in Costa Rica, they're white. They're just, we can depend on them. And that's what they did. I found out, and I went to Zimbabwe in May. And I told the government of Zimbabwe, you have been tricked. This is what they did to you. They were shocked. They said, but how could they lie to us like that? I said, it's easy. Practice makes perfect. I went back to Washington, D.C. I said, brother, can you make a machine that will grind out that seed so we can get the oil to be able to help the world and help our people? He told me that I have a whole program for Southern Africa. I've been developing it over the years. They have developed the ability to take nicotine out of tobacco and make a food product that has more protein value than sesame seed and soybean. Now, can you imagine if you go throughout all of the territories and we are monopolizing tobacco without any nicotine, turning it into products that can be used for the advancement of people? But you can't do that if you don't read. I would have never found out about this process if I didn't read. If you come to visit us in America, you will find in the morning when we give up, when our staff meeting has its first prayer, and in the evening before we go home, we have a discussion of literature. What did you read in the Wall Street Journal? Is there anything in Business Week? Is there anything in Fortune magazine? Summarize it, share it, we digest it, we go home. The first thing we do in the morning is, what have we read last night? Anything on the news? What has happened in economics? What has happened in social development? We circulate that among all of us, and then we plan our day out and we go to work. They're not supposed to be at work till 9 o'clock. I say be there at 8. Because the knowledge that you get, I'm not paying for that. That knowledge is for you. I'm coming, I don't get paid. You come, you don't get paid. We're coming because we love knowledge. I didn't have to give that speech. We have more hours in the building than any company in that building. Big, tall building, downtown San Francisco. If you go to the guard and you say, who stays in this building longer? He said, those Muslims up there with all those funny symbols all over the walls. I don't know, they must live. They must have cots up there because they're always there. The Japanese are in the building. The Koreans are in the building. But we stay there longer because we have more motivation. We look at the world. We look at our people. So if we're going to be talking to Saddam Hussein, we want to be prepared. We want to have something concrete to offer. If we're talking to Sheikh Saad or King Fahad or Mubarak, we don't want to just say, I like you, I don't like you. This is for children. We're not in a dating game. We're saying that we have done some research that we think can help you. We hope it isn't too amateurish, but we have found out the latest technology in this area is this. They told you about us locating water in the desert in Egypt, didn't they? Using the infrared. Told them exactly where to dig. Found in this area enough water to water 200,000 kilometers, and it will last for 200 years in the desert. We took the ice age and we simulated the ice age, the melting of the water. We used the hydraulic pressures to determine where the water would flow under the desert. And then we built a model of how one would use gravitation to suck that water into a large body so that the well drilling would be economic, all by computer, all by graphs showing exactly where to go. When we went to Egypt and handed it over, it was all laid out. Then you can say Assalamu alaikum. The people said, how much? What do you want for this? No. A group of Muslims in San Francisco, just give the credit to them, led by Dr. Ernest Hammond at Morgan State College, a brilliant African-American scientist, directed these people to come up with a solution, and they are proud to be a part of a contribution to your country. Then people begin to say the Muslims are on the rise. The number of farmers who are now beginning to get new farms say the Muslims are on the rise. But now we know more about infrared technology than we knew before. We can see now what we might do in China, what we might do in North Africa, where they have all those desert areas. The same principle, the same application. This was not something we got paid for. It is something that came out of our reading. And that's why I keep stressing and stressing, and I will continue to stress every time you see me. Iqra. It is the best advice I can give you. Read, read, and read some more. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've only been listening to you speaking more about reading as such. But I don't think that you have actually provided a solution to the problems that we have in this country as blacks.
What problems do you...
Problems, like for instance, we listen to you speaking about people have to know computers and the like. That is good.
Right.
But if you go to our township, you look at the problem that you have there, you find that it's different from what we're saying. Our people are not learning there. About 99% of them are illiterate. We don't have libraries, we have nothing. No school, nothing.
All right, that's a good question, because every area is not the same. If you have illiteracy, mass illiteracy, your goal is what? Remove the mass illiteracy, right? So the first step is to go around the world and find out where there has been mass illiteracy and see what they did. That's intelligent. And you do that reading. If you wait, but let me finish. If you don't have enough money to get on an airplane and visit 150 countries in the world, read. You get one report from the United Nations, and they will tell you here are the areas of illiteracy around the world. In 1950, in 1960, in 1970, 1980, 1990. And here is the approach that was employed in all of these areas to reduce illiteracy. This is what it cost. This is how many people did it voluntarily. This is how many governments paid for it. Here are the areas where people were poor and students made the sacrifice to go back to the homeland to begin the process. So then I want to zero in on that, because that's me. Wait, let me just finish. I'm trying to find an experience that approximates the area that I have targeted as the problem. Because when people told me to read before, I said the same thing you. You don't know the problems of the black man in America. They're on drugs. They don't believe in themselves. They're hopeless. They're helpless. But I didn't say that. I said, show me where are the people. Show me where a similar situation existed. Show me where 3 or 4 attempts were made to solve that problem. Show me which one was the most successful, and then go to work. No more talking. After we find out where the success is, stop the talking, get into the community, and wipe out illiteracy. So how does one do it? You don't do it by sitting here saying they got illiterates out there. If we go out there and we say, these are our people, how many here know how to read and write? Here is our program. The first 4 weeks we do this. The next 4 weeks we do this. The next 4 weeks we do this, and we should be at this level. Or I can say, I'm going to go to Mr. de Klerk and say, unless you make those people read and wipe out their illiteracy, I'm going to stay here and get mad. They will be illiterate while you're waiting. I say, let those who are politicians do that. Let us who are students and believe in our people and know how to read, teach our people how to read. My question is, how many people in this room have gone out there and taught people to read? That's practical. It's not dreaming, it's just practical. People can't read, you can read, why don't we go out there and teach some people to read? Isn't that kind of simple? That's what Castro did. Volunteers. That's what they did in Nicaragua. They said, we don't have money. America's suffocating us to death. We don't have any money. We don't even have enough books. How do we start? You know how they started? In the open field. No desks. When it rained, school was a rainy experience. No desks, no paper. They had rallies. And they started chanting songs. They started the people learning words through chants like a parade. And they start repeating back and forth. Pelo Sierra, siempre, siempre. Pelo Sierra, siempre, siempre. And the people began to learn these phrases. And in a very short period of time, the United Nations wrote, illiteracy has been substantially reduced in Ethiopia, where it was 95% by student volunteers. No money, no pity, no saying I'm going to wait for someone else because they owe me. They may owe you. But while they owe you, the people are illiterate. So assign someone to deal with the debt and take the rest to get the job done. That's what I'm saying. I've been all over the world, and I hear the same question everywhere I go. Look at the people, but no one wants to go to the people. I'm saying, if you see your house has mice, get a mouse trap. If they have rats, get a rat trap. If illiteracy is the problem, get our books and let's discuss it out there in the village. If we educate 10, we're 10 people better off. Every day, let's make a goal. If it's the weekend, let's do it on the weekend. Let's not wait for someone to do it if we can do it ourselves. When the people see us do it, it builds their confidence. They say, I couldn't read or write, but my son or my cousin or my brother came in with some strangers, and they came here week after week. Now let me read this to you. Let me read this for you. Why not? Your turn.
Yeah, actually, if now you look at clearly, I don't deny what you're saying. I'm also part of the people who run projects in my place. I'm running educational projects. But the problem that we have with those projects is because of the system that we are under. The system exploits. The system...
How does the system prevent you from teaching the people how to read? That's what I'm trying to find. How? How?
In terms of if we actually run what you call a private school, that private school is not going to be registered to the department.
So what? We're trying to get people to read. We don't want registration. We just want to get people to read.
I understand that we need a certificate so that we can go to universities.
No, we're talking about two different things. I'm talking about literacy. That person who learns how to read is not going to the university the next day. We're talking about basic fundamentals where parents can talk to their kids and their kids can talk to the parents. You're taking me to another level. You're talking about kids with educational skills that are approved by the state to get them in school. That's another problem, and it's an interesting problem. I'm talking about mass illiteracy, where mothers and fathers have not been taught to read. They don't believe they can read. Why don't we focus on that? Because we can do that. What I'm trying to find out, and you may know better than I do, tell me specifically, if I got this, everyone in this room, and we went out to the homeland and we started teaching people how to read who did not know how to read, what would the government do? Yes.
But I mean, isn't it to prove your productivity, you have to provide material, right?
You have to provide what?
Material in terms of certificates, right?
No. Why? Why do that?
I mean, to be recognized.
Sorry?
To be recognized, aren't supposed to provide certificates?
At what stage?
In terms of...
You're not going to do that the first 2 weeks. You're not going to get a certificate. We're talking about getting people that can't read at all to get the fundamentals. Old people who've been deprived all their life, they don't want a certificate. What they are talking about is, can I now get a newspaper and get information that I couldn't get before? Yes.
What would be the implication of that information?
Sorry?
What would be the implication of the information? The information that you've acquired, you are productive in terms of people recognizing.
Oh, well, let me give you some basic examples. If I want to teach people how to farm, and the directions for how to use the fertilizer is written and they can't read, we got a problem. So I say to them, what are our goals? The people are living in an area, they can't read, and they are starving. May I suggest that you read the story of Steve Biko's son's mother. And she was banned. And she was sent into a place she didn't know anything about, out in nowhere. And she said when she got out there, she tried to die because she had been at the university and she had become kind of an elitist. She grew up in urban areas. She didn't know those rural areas. She didn't know the customs of the people. And she was pregnant. She said, I know I cannot stay here. I cannot adjust. She said further, the only thing that kept me alive was that I didn't want Steve Biko's child to die. They took her to the hospital. The baby was born. After the baby was born, she stayed there under the banning law, teaching people how to read and write. One lady. The next thing she did is she taught them how to sew and how to farm so that they can begin to feed themselves. One lady. In Johannesburg, I met one lady that feeds 20,000 people a month. One lady. 20,000. She begs the merchants for money. Then she begs the merchants for food, and the men won't go with her. She has to go by herself, but 20,000 people get food. If each one of us fed 20,000 people, how many would we be feeding a month? 500,000, 1 million? Or we could stay here and discuss it and feed no one, talking about how the government prevents us. I'm not minimizing the government's interference, but I'm telling you, there are things that we can be doing, that we should be doing, and if we plan them systematically, we will be doing them. If one lady can plan 20,000, this is not imagination. She's not feeding them angel food. She is feeding them the food to keep their nutrition. They are now sewing. There's no electricity there. They can't run a power machine. I talked to her. I said, why don't you get a cutting table? Cut out the fabric. Let the people sew it, and you can make more money for them. She said, my brother, you're just too ignorant. I appreciate your sincerity, and you think you have a lot of ideas, but you don't know what you're talking about. There's no electricity out there, so you can't have a cutting table, and you can't have the power machine. I said, all right, you presented a problem. I can't solve that problem. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to go back to my experts, and I'm going to get a group of people just like this, and we're going to study this problem until we get an answer. We're not going to engage in self-pity. We're not going to engage in self-destruction. We're going to solve this problem. I now am back here with a solution. When I go to Johannesburg, let me tell you with pride, my engineer, Jamelia L. Mansour, a fashion designer and a CPA, who went to school on a bicycle and lived in a room about the size of this corner with her 2 kids up on a lot. They had to climb a ladder steps up to the loft, and the 3 of them slept on the loft without any hot water, and she rode to the University of California, Berkeley, and rode back, and now she has a CPA exam because she refused to pity herself. She said other people may do it easier, they may have automobiles, they may have bigger homes, but I will do it. Now this young lady devised for us a solution. What is the solution? She devised a pattern that you tear. You don't need scissors. You simply take the fabric and you tear the fabric, and she then has a design for stitching the fabric, and you have a blouse. So now we can go back to those ladies and say, we're going to bring 50 machines here, and we're going to want you to make blouses, and I'm going to take those blouses to America, and we're going to sell those blouses under a label called Authentically African. Janet Jackson #1. Then with the money that is made, we're going back and tell the ladies, why don't we now get some electricity and put in power so we can make more blouses? Now, all I'm saying to you, brother, match me. You produce as many jobs as I do here for our people. You educate as many people as I do here, and then we'll talk about it. I say you use your approach. I don't know what it is. Whatever it is, you take your approach and you say after 1 year, and we'll start with the same amount of money. Nothing. We'll start with 0. We agree. I won't use money. You won't use money. We'll use people who believe in us. And we will set up goals. Jobs, education. And jobs and education. Then I will see how the government interferes with me. You will see how the government interferes with you. Then we'll add just simple math. Here's how many jobs you have produced for my people. Here's how many jobs I have produced for my people. Here's how many people we have educated. Here's how many people you've educated. Then we let the people compare the results. Is that fair? We got a deal? Oh, brother.
What I would say that really, in reality, when you say it like T-Tex says, right, you speak the same language.
I don't know anything about it. I'm saying if I educate people and the clerk doesn't educate people, I don't see how we can speak the same language. If I talk about people having jobs and the clerk says people don't have jobs, I don't know how we can speak the same language. We are talking results. I'm saying match me in the name of our people. Just match me. If I produce 10, you produce 10. What does that have to do with the clerk?
Let me explain.
All right.
The problem, I said even before, that the problem that we have, I said the masses that we're speaking about, the masses can be able to read and write. But what we have, we don't have the means of going to higher institutions and further.
What's the illiteracy rate here?
Understand.
What's the illiteracy rate here? What is the illiteracy rate in this country? Huh?
99%.
Well, then why do you say they can read or write, the masses?
Actually, what I'm trying to say to you is that in a nutshell, maybe we don't understand each other.
All right.
What I'm trying to say is the same question that they raised up, that the question that we have is that we can learn those things as we learn it. Our people learn that. But what are they having? They're not productive at all. They're not productive. What we have in this system, we've got the middle class people. Education is provided for the middle class, those who can afford. Right? Those who can afford. The masses, the entire masses cannot afford. And there's a system that is designing the whole thing. We don't have textbooks, we don't have teachers, we have nothing. We don't have computers, we know nothing about computers, we know nothing, right from the grassroots level. And everybody is saying what you're saying. Nice, good words. People must do this, people must do this. Who go and do that to the masses? No one goes to the masses.
The lady is feeding 20,000 of the masses, brother.
Well, but that is
That is what?
Johannesburg. It's a number in Johannesburg. What are people here in Durban?